This video is to talk a little bit about different ways of sidechaining. I did another video on ringmod sidechain, which is pretty much what I use these days. I just wanted to kind of summarize why you might want to use it and how it compares to other sidechain methods. This is also like a rehash of a video that Borrasca made, and I'll link to that in the description. But this is kind of just focused on Reaper. I think he does it with Ableton. Just want to preface, this is mainly for electronic music. Yeah, it may work well with other types of music, but electronic music is what I normally do. So let's start out with a very simple project with 2 tracks. And one of the tracks is a bass line, and one other track is drums. And I'm going to play them individually so you can hear what they sound like. Something to just keep in mind are the levels that you see. And here I have just a loudness meter, but what's interesting is the peak levels. So let's hear what the bass sounds like. So that's the bass line, and here is some simple 4 on the floor drums. And you notice that they both peak pretty close to 0.1, and I have limiters on both tracks just to kind of keep it there. But of course, if we play these together, it's going to sum them, and it's going to be much louder than 0 dB. And you probably hear some distortion there, but you can see the peak levels are +5. And the kind of first way to solve this, and the simplest way, is using something like LFO tool, which applies a volume envelope in a loop to one of the tracks. And usually the tracks that you do this on are the tracks other than the drum bus. Here's an example where I've put LFO tool on the bass track, and it has a very simple cutting completely during the kick. And we can see what this looks like and sounds like. And that's kind of the typical electronic music where the bass is completely ducked out when the drums are coming in. Now, you can also do this natively in your DAW, and I'm using Reaper, and what this is simply is a volume envelope. So we can do something like that in Reaper with the volume envelope here, and we simply create something that looks like what LFO tool would do in the volume envelope for the track. What's nice here is you can just do 1 bar and loop the envelope for the rest of the track, and this can be done with something like automation items in Reaper. So in Reaper, I have simply this automation envelope that I created, and I just extended it all the way out. Other DAWs have something similar, but if we listen to this, it'll sound very similar to the LFO tool. And you also notice the peaking, at least when I was playing it, is much less than 5 dB, which is what it was when we weren't applying any of this. Again, here's LFO tool. And here's the volume envelope. Very similar. Another thing that is done quite a bit here is instead of using a volume envelope, you use sidechain compression. Again, it's also a very simple technique where The trigger for the sidechain is the drums, and you apply this sidechain to the bass or to the other tracks. And here's an example of that. It's obviously much harder to get the envelope to be exactly what you want with the compressor because you're dealing with the attack time or release time. You kind of have to play with these, and you almost always will get this pumping sound that, maybe that's what you want because a lot of the electronic music has that. So this is a very common thing, and I use it quite a bit as well. To set this up in Reaper is also very simple. I have this sidechain that's on the bass, and in the drums track, I am simply sending the drums out to a different pair of channels. The bass track, which is 3 and 4, and the Reaper sidechain detector input is set to auxiliary, and that means the 3 and 4. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some different ways applying this kind of sidechain, this volume envelope. Now, here we did a very simple ducking, but you can imagine here I've created this curve based on what I think sounds and kind of looks matches well with this drum track. But you can try to even match it much closer. In other words, this is a kick here, and you can imagine just applying a volume envelope that follows this kick as closely as possible. And that's essentially what the sidechain compression is doing. But you could go even further where you do it at the sample level. So like whenever this goes up in level, you at the exact same point, exact same sample, you bring down the volume of the other tracks. Something to kind of point out here is, this goes positive and negative. However, what we really want to do is just duck the bass. So we care about the amplitude here. So whenever it goes up, we want to duck it. Whenever it goes below 0, we also want to duck it. And that's just an important point to know when we apply what's called ringmod sidechain, which we'll do at the end of this. But first, we just want to try to match this very closely and apply that volume envelope to this bass track. And one way we can do this, in Reaper, there is something called the envelope compressor. And this is essentially going to build a volume envelope that matches the drums as much as possible. And see what that looks like. Let's show the envelopes, apply real-time updates. And as soon as we start bringing this down, we'll see some envelope points show up here. And we want to make it as close as possible. So maybe bring the release all the way down, maybe bring the threshold down. And you can kind of see what it's actually doing here is it comes closer and closer to the actual waveform. Bring it down so you add more points here in the lower interval. Maybe bring it a bit further. So we have this new envelope that is trying to match as close as possible this drum track. And what you really want to do is take this envelope and apply it to the other track. So we can do something like that by, let's clear this envelope and select all the points here, copy, create a new envelope here, and I can paste this. And then we need to clear this envelope because we don't need it anymore. And let's play that. You can already see that we've now come down to exactly 0 dB. However, the bass, if you listen, the bass is much quieter. And it's because this envelope is really ducking the bass quite a bit. And it's a bit too exaggerated. We can perhaps tweak that with the envelope-based compressor, maybe not duck this as much. It would be nice if we can just match this perfectly. You know, we take everything that's in this drum and apply it perfectly to the bass. And we can do that with something called ringmod sidechain. Here is an example of using ringmod sidechain. Here I have another track with an effect I created called ringmod sidechain. It is a very simple bit of code in JSFX. But the way to use this is, you know, we create this new track called Sidechain, and we send the drums to channels 3 and 4 of that sidechain track, and we importantly don't send it to the master. So everything is going to basically be going through this sidechain track. So we send it to 3 and 4, the drums, and for the bass, we send it to 1 and 2 of the sidechain track. And again, we don't send to the master. When I play this, we're going to see that the peaks aren't going to go above 0. And this is essentially sidechain compression, but at the sample level. So whenever the volume of the drums goes up, at the exact sample point, the volume of the bass is brought down. You don't hear any kind of ducking artifact or anything like that. However, you do hear a bit of distortion because it's happening at such a fast. It's like using a compressor with a very fast attack and release. You're going to get distortion, and that's kind of what you hear here. But what's important here is you can get quite a bit of loudness this way, and you can apply some other techniques to lower that distortion a bit just so it sounds a little bit better, but still be able to kind of achieve this very loud mix. What I usually do is I combine this with maybe something as simple as LFO tool to get that kind of nice ducking sound. However, I'm not using LFO tool to actually get the sum to be less than 0 dB. That's already handled by the ringmod sidechain. And so, as an example, on this bass track, I might add an LFO tool, but here it's simply I'm doing something that just makes it maybe sound a bit better, and I don't have to go all the way down to 0. I just need to, based on what sounds good to me, I can adjust this. Well, the important thing is here, I'm still never going above 0. That's already handled by this ringmod sidechain. And I found that you can get quite a bit of loudness here without it sounding very bad and having this huge ducking sound to it. Again, you're going to hear some distortion, but there are other ways to kind of hide that or make it sound a bit more appealing. Comparing the ringmod sidechain with the original, they sound very similar, except the ringmod sidechain one is not going above 0 dB. So here is the ringmod sidechain. And here is the original. So I think the ringmod sidechain sounds a bit better in terms of distortion. However, this is plus 5 dB, and when I generate this video, it might sound even quite worse just because it's going over 0 dB. That's the general idea. I will link to the effects in the description if you want to apply this to your tracks.